Right, so continuing on with the Marine Surveying International Fest 2018, can I just thank Zarir Irani and Constellation Marine for their generous support of this event, and also for the Nautical Institute, who are working as media partners for us. It gives me great pleasure to introduce Professor Chris Abrahams. I had the pleasure of hearing Chris speak in Dubai at an IMS conference last year. I was so moved by his subject material, and although this isn't directly related to marine surveying, what Chris is going to talk about is the uncertainty and the change that is going on around us. You know, we don't know what's around the next corner. We are in the process of massive change. But Chris, you know, I enjoyed it so much. I'm thrilled that you're here today. I'm going to be quiet now and hand over the microphone to you. So over to you, Chris.
Thank you very much, and it's an honor and pleasure to be among industry professionals. Let me start on an encouraging note that you as professionals across the world actually represent one of the oldest professions that humanity has ever seen. A colorful history which goes back to thousands of years, and you continue to do it in different shades. And my presumption, and I believe and pray that it's true, that as long as humanity lives, the marine trade, the marine profession would certainly undergo different changes, but I don't think it's going to see the end in any near future. Because of the nature of the profession, the kind of connection we have with the seas, and we know that more than 3 parts of the world is covered with the oceans. So we do have a lot to do with the oceans and the industries related to it, and marine industry, marine surveying are no exception. Notice outside. Right. So moving forward, the VUCA is a term that has been there for quite a few years, maintained traction after we had the 9/11, when there were certain very unexpected, uncertain events happened in the US. The military was, of course, familiar with this term for many years, because you always are facing uncertain, very unexpected actions in the field. So when it really hit the political and the geopolitical scenario, they called it a VUCA, which is nothing but a word, an acronym that stands for volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. So for people like me who come from a hardcore consulting field, we are very used to doing projections. So back 33 years back, I've had the privilege of working with some of the biggest brands in India and abroad, where we would actually project their futures 5 years, 10 years, and even further. We would give them a strategic plan for 15 years. And that was possible because the future was more predictable, was less volatile, was more certain, less complex, and much more known to us, with various factors happening at a certain pace. In fact, many of you may be familiar, the easiest model we would use is the historical trends. So we look at the trends for the last few years and then conveniently project it for the next few years, and bingo, you have a formula in place. Today, if I use that same formula, I would be actually misleading my stakeholders, because it is certainly volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. And ironically enough, this VUCA has now become the new normal because of various things that happen at the speed of change that things are happening. Now, a different dimension that I'll show you in a minute, I'll show you a very interesting video which actually encapsulates the essence of this model called VUCA. So complexity is because many different decision factors have to be taken into consideration, and volatility happens because the rate of changes becomes so fast and so unpredictable, and ambiguity because the meaning of events themselves are very difficult to clarify. Philosophers, financial pundits would call it black swan events. You never know when it hits us, and when it hits us big time. There's another way of looking at it, it's called gray rhinos. So in a world of black swans and gray rhinos are calamities and complexities right in front of us, and we don't really see them, probably because of the enormous amount of cognitive biases that we are embedded with in our human thinking system. And uncertainty is because of the lack of clarity in the present structure. I have this lovely video which I'd like you to watch for about 2 to 3 minutes, which encapsulates the essence of what VUCA stands for us. And then we will try to look at it from a human ingenuity perspective. Is it all that scary? Is it all that bad? Or are there ways out as to how we can plan ahead in spite of a VUCA world. So I think that sets the stage for what VUCA represents. And I love the last four words, which ends on such a positive note, which says, yes, it's VUCA, but it's a brave new world. It's, of course, become the new norm. So it's inevitable. Whatever industry you belong to, you would certainly be disrupted by this VUCA, complex, uncertain, ambiguous world. But if you use the human ingenuity, which has not only helped humanity to survive, but also to thrive in every single challenge that humanity has posed, I think VUCA can also be twisted in terms of looking at vision, the ability to see things in the right perspective, the understanding, which is the wisdom to understand what exactly it means. Also, to look at it with a pair of lenses which provide clarity, and of course, with the speed that humanity responds to these complex challenges on an ongoing basis, would be basically the essence of humanity thriving in a VUCA world. So yes, it's VUCA for us, but with the right vision, understanding, clarity, and agility, coupled with human wisdom, resilience, compassion, and skillfulness, we would certainly be able to overcome the challenges of the future. Now, one of the outcomes of this rapid change that has happened is from the industrial perspective, and we have a term for it given by the World Economic Forum called the fourth industrial revolution. The first one was all about basic machines, the first industrial revolution driven by steam power. The second was more in terms of automation, in terms of the mobile industries. The third was driven by IT, but the fourth one is a connected economy, which connects different machines, different technologies, different communities, thanks to internet and thanks to various other things, which I'll share with you. The fourth industrial revolution has given us 10 interesting trends. Whether we like it or not, that's inevitable. And so I'll quickly run you through the 10 trends that epitomize the changes within the fourth industrial revolution. Number one is the consumer experience. So whether you're a marine surveyor, whether you're a coffee aficionado, whether you're a learning expert, in each category, the consumer ultimately now is looking for enhanced, engaged experiences. Now, Nescafe used to be a coffee company, and then it turned out to be a coffee experience company, which is a combination of a traditional coffee, a food and beverage manufacturer, trying to provide a Starbucks-like experience at home through the simple concept called Nespresso. Many of you may be familiar with it, where you have a lovely machine that churns out the best of coffee beans, which is already put in the, those little sockets that you have, and then you choose them, different flavors, different timings. You get absolutely amazing coffee, almost as good as freshly roasted and made to order. So it's an experience economy that we're moving to, and we're moving towards what we call mass customization. The first one was one car for all. Many of you may be familiar with the Ford T model, fiasco. And then today we have mass marketing, mass customization, mass manufacturing, but it happens at a personal level of cars or any other product for that matter, which can be personalized. We're even getting into personalized learning, personalized manufacturing, so on and so forth. The third important trend is globalization. A simple example is, of course, baguette, which is, where baguette is a very famous thing. And back in India, you have what's called the Maharaja Mac, which is a veggie burger, which probably may not be the delight in any other part of the world. But in India, being a strong vegetarian, focused food economy, there are veggie versions of the same Mac burger. So globalization becomes another important trend. Now, Internet of Things, again, very critical, especially for the marine industry, is the connected world. Connected through by 2020, which is just 1.5 years from now, less than 1.5 years, we would have 30 billion devices from a jetliner to a sewing needle, which will be seamlessly connected to the internet. In fact, if you've recently heard Sir Tim Berners-Lee, the original inventor of the internet, he talks about a new kind of internet, much more powerful, much more connected, and equally important, much more ethical. So that's going to happen, 30 billion devices connected with each other. For the marine industry, it's a great opportunity for, in terms of being very specific, in terms of excellence, in terms of service, in terms of customer satisfaction, so on and so forth. because these connections can give amazing results in terms of data, which in turn can help us to make much more meaningful decisions. The fifth one is remote. So you can today, have all kinds of remote operations, remote management, because of the equipments and the technology that enables us. For example, a GE plant manager has been able to relaunch his factory with his iPad from home after he got warned that a storm had stopped the production. Now, that's the kind of enablement that's possible when we have the remote control with us. And 3D printing, again, a very critical technology. I don't know how many of you are familiar. 3D is now getting into the realms of food, is getting into the realms of buildings, is getting into the realms of pretty much everything. And this is going to be one of the key technologies that will drive us future forward. The next one is smart objects. Right from a wearable, you would have sensors on cars, all kinds of smart objects. Not only are they smart in terms of the right perceptions and the right kind of data provisions, but they also connect each other so that they can converse. And then you have reshoring of manufacturing. So today CEOs are rethinking their global manufacturing footprints. They must balance a wide range of factors from transportation, costs and currency exchange rates to protection of intellectual property and proximity to customers. So we are slowly seeing a trend even in the United States, which is one of the largest manufacturing hubs, that traditional businesses which had gone out to Asian economies are coming back because of this reshoring options available. And obviously, every industry has to go through what we call regulations, whether it's manufacturing, whether it's shipping, whether it's marine. You have this continuous process of accreditations, approvals. And last but not the least, for the sake of the future of the planet, we need to, this is no longer a PR factor. This is no longer a just in case CSR initiative. It's a very, very critical component to ensure the future of the planet that we would have to give as a legacy for our future generations. So both in sustainable resources and in production and in the goods, there is a continuous thing. Marine is one of the key industries which would have to play a substantial role in this important critical future factor. So the one thing that's important for us is to get prepared. Whatever industry we are in, the offshoot of these 10 things based on the fourth industrial revolution would lead us to 4 types of solution, whichever industry that we need to be. So we need to embrace. The first one is smart and connected. There's no choice. Industry after industry gets connected. I represent a global school which has campuses in Dubai, Singapore, Sydney, and Mumbai. Our latest innovation for our executive MBA program is an ELO program, an ELO platform as we call it. ELO is nothing but engaged learning organism. And this actually means that with a classroom, a smart classroom in Dubai or Singapore or Sydney or Mumbai, we can connect with the world at large, exactly the way we are connected. But please visualize slightly more advanced, where we have 40 screens in front of the professor, and each of these 40 screens has a minimum of 1 person with a maximum of 3 persons, which means we can connect with 120 people. The best part is I can see all the 100 to 120 people. They can see me. They can ask questions by raising their hand. I can answer them directly. And there are a whole lot of other things that can happen, notwithstanding time zones. So you could have one candidate in Sao Paulo, Brazil. The other one can be on the other side of the world, which is New Zealand. And we can connect with each of them. The only thing that we can't control is the time zone differences. That's divine. But it is possible to have smart technologies connecting communities across the world. Your business is global. So the only option for you is to stay smart and connected. And this means you have digitization, smart factories, smart technologies that connect with each other. So engineers may no longer have to be located on site. This is from the production perspective, because they can oversee and optimize mission operations and maintenance remotely, as we just saw in the example of the GE plant manager. And we will also impact how machines work. So you're going to have machine-to-machine interface happening even more critically. That's inevitable. Now, the most important thing is that all these machine-to-machine interactions and interface should be wisely and intelligently commandeered by human wisdom, because we never know what are the limits of machine intelligence or machine learning, and we need to draw the line, because this is a very critical aspect of the future of technologies. So smart technology and smart connected production also enables online production management and self-optimizing production. The second important thing is flexible production. Probably that's a Japanese legacy that was given to us a few decades back with lean production systems and just-in-time. But I think it's now becoming more and more a norm than an exception. Thanks to 3D printing, thanks to computerized digital planning, production planning, these things are becoming much more useful. And thanks to the interchangeable modules from these digital technologies, we can mix and match and provide optimum production solutions to rapidly adapt to final customers' needs. Because today the customer of the 21st century is very impatient, wants everything before time, and is not willing to wait. The third one is social. This is a very interesting concept, because social is all about the communities that connect with each other. So one of the things, again, I'm going back to our example, because we have campuses in all these different time zones. At least once a week, teams of these professionals meet online, meet through Zoom or meet through advanced video conferencing. Now we are looking at holographic projections where we share best practices. And this again becomes meaningful, because what we need is different stakeholders from the OEM to the final consumer can be connected on a single platform. And if blockchain becomes more and more useful, again, you have one seamless communication of networks connecting with each other, sharing best practices, and avoiding mishaps and misunderstandings and misrepresentation. So it's very exciting in these times. And obviously, the whole philosophy of sharing relating to care happens with ideas anywhere, anytime. To create and produce products people want in a very, very efficient way. And the fourth one is high quality services production. This goes without saying, because today people have the option, even before they come to the service provider or the product provider, they've done their homework, they've done the comparative analysis, they have done their peer-to-peer rating. So they pretty well know what to expect at what value. So high quality services production is again no longer an option, it's imperative for survival and growth. And the way we can do it, the simplest way today is if we have good quality data that can help us to categorize customers, segment customers, and of course, target them in the right and most meaningful manner. And we can also look at the production life cycles using the production factors, but pretty much you can use it anywhere, because high value added services is something that customers are looking for. So nearly 80% of manufacturers are now in the process of developing mobile apps, which can help them to have a seamless experience, both in terms of planning, production, delivery, and of course, after delivery experiences. All this happens as a result of two things that we call digital disruption and digital transformation. I wanted to watch this beautiful, very thought-provoking video, which talks about the enablement of technology through digital disruptions, but also tells humanity and human beings to be at the center of it all. The video is by a very well-known futurist called Gerd Leonard, and I'd like you to watch it and make your own opinions.
Once upon a time, business as usual was often good enough. No more. Where we are going, good enough is dead. In a world where everything is connected, where everything is equally excellent, where performance is reaching perfection, there's only one space left to innovate in: you. Right now, you are a central point in the raging tornado of change fueled by innovation, localization, augmentation, disintermediation, automation, where the list comes on. Science fiction is becoming science fact. Self-driving cars and computers that can really think. The way we work will never be the same, and skills we enable dramatically different, realizing and now happening faster than ever before. So what's your response? How will you discover new opportunities and run from most transformational time in human history. Are you driving change, or are you being driven by it? Disruption has become the new normal. With change, it's always gradually, then suddenly, well, things really have stopped happening gradually. This change is exponential. Everything that used to be dumb and disconnected is now wired and intelligent. Cars, cities, ports, farms, even our bodies will be wired with sensors and will talk to each other. These game changers are also combinatorial. They amplify each other, creating a perfect storm of change. Quantum computing fuels big data. The Internet of Things fuels artificial intelligence and deep learning, which fuels robotics. However, anything that cannot be digitized or automated will become extremely valuable. Human traits such as creativity, imagination, intuition, emotion, and ethics will be even more important in the future, because machines are very good at simulating, but not at being. Yes, robots and software will do some of our work, but this will allow us to focus on things that we not know. You imagine change squared. You've got to start engaging more with what might be, not just with what is. Immerse yourself in the immediate future, 5 to 7 years out from today. And it will be beyond technology and data to reach movement insight and wisdom. Technology represents the how of change, but humans represent the why. The future is about holistic business. The opportunity is to be literate and learn just in time, not just in case, not single improvements, but complete transformations, not individual systems, but new ecosystems. Humanity is where true and lasting value is created. We will engage, relate, and buy things because of the experiences they provide, because of their transformative power. The future doesn't just happen. The future gets happen. You need to work to embrace technology, but not to become it. The future isn't technology, yet the bigger future lies in transcending. Let live and lead from here.
That's a fabulous exposition of how humanity and the wisdom of humanity should actually transcend technology. So it's going to change rapidly, faster, everything being connected, which is what Judd was alluding to. And it's also going to be imminent in ports and shipping. So that, I think, is critical. It's a metamorphosis, but it's happening, and it is going to disrupt us. We discussed these technologies from 3D printed food to robotics to artificial intelligence to machine learning. Everything is happening. And of course, the cartoon talks about the little kid asking whether he was downloaded and mama telling him, you weren't downloaded, you were born. Okay, so that's the way the world and the future is moving towards. So 2030, what's going to happen? Gary Hamel from the London Business School has this beautiful quote. He says, the single biggest reason that companies fail is that they overinvest in what is as opposed to what might be. So future planning, future thinking, future forward, these should be the buzzwords in terms of looking. The reason being the growth and the decline is happening today from linear to exponential. Linear growth was a 20th century concept where a traditional average growth of a company happens in leaps of 15 to 30 to larger number of years. Whereas today we are talking about the disruption happening so rapid and so fast that 5 years is the norm when a company from 0 to $1 billion happens and multi-billion. I mean, take the likes of Airbnb, Uber, Apple, Amazon. Amazon may be a longer duration, but you have many examples of companies that rapidly grow beyond their size thanks to these technologies that enable that. Now, the question is, how is this going to impact ports in the future? Because that's part of your business. Well, you have a law of 5.2 for automation of knowledge, 1.7 for advanced robotics. But I'd also like you to keep an eye on the right side, which is the high impact. So from a low impact of all these things, autonomous vehicles, IoT, mobile internet, accumulative about 13.50 trillion. And 30.10, which is more than double that which is projected, from the lowest. So I think I would look at that being an optimist and a person who researches on positive psychology, that I would look at the bigger opportunity in terms of the high propensity or the potential in terms of 30 trillion impacting the marine and ports industries. And the connectivity, as the IoT is going to be the new norm, 30 billion devices connected to each other, talking to each other, providing data, providing wisdom, providing various kinds of intelligence, which can help us to make much better decisions. So intelligence automation. So automation, which is going to connect with, which is where the human interface with the technology is going to happen. The data is provided by the automation, and the intelligent decisions are made by humanity based on trends predicted through big data. So because everything is connected, intelligent, observed, efficient, and optimized, the future forward is going to be in transforming the infrastructure of ports and marine from dumb to smart. The reason being, because of these connected technologies, it can enable us to do that. So maximizing efficiency, IoT itself will become an $8.9 trillion market with, as you saw, about 250 to 300 billion connected things over the net. So pretty much everything that could be digitized and automated will be digitized. So does that mean we should delete humanity? The video said it that we don't need to. We have an option to transcend technology, and here's what it is.
We are at a pivot point in history. Humanity will change more in the next 20 years than in the 300 years before. Technology is now the defining factor of our society. We were able to travel virtually to the most amazing places directly from our living room or using our mobile devices. Billions of devices and objects will be connected in the Internet of Things. Soon, technology is moving inside of us, becoming a part of us. Our contact lenses will be connected to the Internet, and nanobots will be in our bloodstreams, fixing our cholesterol. Life will be magical, abundant, full of possibilities. What could be better? Because we know, don't we, that what makes us human will never change. I know what you're thinking. Connectivity is like oxygen. We need it to live. Even at the risk of losing our privacy, your car, your smart fridge, your wearables will talk to your doctor and your insurance company. Yes, indeed, data is the new oil. These exponential changes are unstoppable. Man and machine will converge. We are about to transcend humanity. Is it creepy or useful? Is it heaven or is it hell? What will it mean to be human in a world where everyone will need to be amplified or augmented by algorithms? By 2027, computers are likely to match the capacity of the human brain, perhaps even reach some kind of awareness or emotional intelligence. Yes, artificial intelligence and cognitive computing are incredibly powerful. But if we fail to consider the unintended, such as, for example, an intelligence explosion, these advances could be more dangerous than nuclear weapons. Why would we expect robots or artificial intelligence to share or even understand human values, ethics, and emotions? Technology doesn't have ethics, but the future of humanity depends on it. We need to spend just as much time on the norms and the values and the context than we spend on technology itself. After all, the future is not just something that happens to us. The future is something that we create. Are you ready for your future shock? Come with me and see where the story takes us next.
Okay, so that probably puts a beautiful philosophic twist to the whole argument of technology versus humanity, and no better person than Gert to share that thought with us. So I think we still are in control in spite of everything, notwithstanding that humans do have a very critical role to play. So from data to business intelligence to strategy and analysis, everything today is also moving towards the intelligence cloud. So cloud, which used to be more of a warm and fluffy phenomena, is much more a reality, and companies like Amazon, Google, Microsoft, Alibaba is spending billions to tap into this trillions of dollars worth markets. Sensors which are connecting each other, again, becoming very critical from the marine industry perspective. Again, we need to be cognizant of it. And as you see in this Gartner diagram, you see how exponentially and interdependently many of these technologies are growing at speeds unimaginable, but that's going to be the future. And it's also combinatorial, which means it connects with each other and creates marvelous, magical output, which can transform humanity. And so we have to strive for independence because it's less lucrative, and we have to know how to manage interdependence. And this is where the combination of US Postal Service and UPS, blue and brown make green, becomes relevant and becomes interesting. So I think a very critical outcome of all this, because of this technological connections and connectivity, even humanity can no longer work in silos. Systems, productions, divisions, departments can never ever work on silos. So it's game over for the traditional way which we use, the silo cultures. We need to move from that to connected and collaborative cultures. So 4 economies evolve from all of these beautiful changes that are happening in a VUCA context. Number 1, a maker economy driven by distributed manufacturing and 3D printing. The on-demand sharing economy, where we don't even need to own something, the Uber Airbnb model. Own less, access more, a kind of disownership. The circular economy, where we recycle all the stuff that we have produced to become circular. So people, planet, profit towards sustainable capitalism. And last but not the least, the economy, the experience economy that is driven by immersive, embodied experiences, which focus on lifetime memories instead of purchases. So these are experiences, engagements, which create lifetime memories for all kinds of customers. So from products and ownership to service and access, so you would have 5 billion people in the middle class who would be using many of these services. By the way, by the time we expected to projected revenue, projected population about 8.5 billion, of which 5 billion would be within the middle class. Now, IBM is working on some very interesting stuff using cognitive intelligence and neural synaptic chips called sentient ports, which means these ports will be completely automated and driven by digital technology. Very less of human errors and human fallacies, driven more by automation, or I would say a more advanced version of your driverless cars. And then cognitive computing and the shipping industry, no longer buzz and no longer words, fancy words, but a reality, because companies like IBM are already working on it. And there is a company called Vicarious, whichever way you want to call, which is now building software that thinks and learns like a human, and using predictive analytics and anticipatory services, which of course will then become the new norm. Ambient computing using predictive analytics, creating something as what we call business superintelligence, which means it could predict faster, more accurately, and more relevantly to provide amazing outcomes, products, and services for stakeholders across. Energy, again, would find new forms. It's no longer going to be fossil-based or gas-based. We're looking at different kinds. You can see there a floating solar platform, and there are many more sustainable energies that are coming in. Whatever industry we are in, including the marine industry, let's remember it's a combination of people, planet, and profit. The old norm of profits above everything is completely now disrupted. It is by people, for the planet, and an outcome, by the way, outcome are profits. And with global logistics, will it be sooner or later run largely by robots and AI? Well, the answer is yes and no, because we would have human-only qualities as Gerd illustrated, the ethics, the values, the intuition, the judgments, the decision-making would all be still governed by the wisdom of humanity, or would certainly have coexistence of technology, and emotional intelligence, again, being a key factor to collaborate and work with teams across. Machines, very important. Machines are for answers, but humans are for questions. So I think the lost art of asking questions, thanks to our educational system, is now coming back with a big bang, that people are now privileged to ask the right questions and leave the answers to the machines. And lastly, to leave you with this quote from Gary Hamel and from the research that goes across, change is increasingly, gradually, then suddenly. You have to expect exponential, combinatorial, interdependent technologies. And interdependence means think hyper collaboration between machines, between technology, and creating new forms of ecosystems. And as we said, machines are for answers and the humans are for questions. We need to continuously examine the areas where you're digitally contestable. So the best way to predict the future is to create it. And I'd like to end this presentation with a little video.
The suicide bomber, terror is a nuclear device in the heart of the nation's capital. It's no wonder that we're pessimistic. It's no wonder that people think that the world is getting worse. But perhaps that's not the case. Perhaps we forget that we've only just begun. Doing what's never been done before is intellectually seductive, whether or not we deem it practical. What we're seeing is unfathomably new possibilities all of a sudden becoming available to us. Future doesn't belong to the imperfect. It belongs to the brave. You have to trust in something. Your gut, destiny, life, karma, whatever. We truly are extraordinary time.
Technically, your device is on. Can you hear me?
The yearning to do what we do in service of something larger than ourselves. Where did we come from? Are we alone in the universe? What is the future of the human race? When you conduct those exercises, innovation follows just as day follows night. We can do this. I know we can because we've done it before. Stay hungry, stay foolish.
So yes, it's a VUCA world, but humanity and the wisdom of human beings will help us transcend it with the right vision and the right wisdom. Thank you very much.
Professor Chris, I am once again in awe of your ability to inspire and to challenge everything that we know to be the norm around us. And I thank you hugely for what I think has been an extraordinary presentation. So my hearty thanks to you. Before I let you go, I might just ask the online audience if they have any questions for you.
That's right. My email ID is there, so they're more than welcome to write to me. And of course, you have other coordinates. I'm more than happy.
chris@spjain.org. So do any of our delegates want to ask Chris a question about this challenging world that we're living in? So we have a stunned silence, Chris. So it only remains for me to say thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
Lovely to have seen you again. And I wish you well. And thank you very much.
My pleasure. And congratulations for this amazing initiative. Wish you good luck for the remaining sessions.
Thank you very much. Take care, Chris. Goodbye.
God bless you. Bye-bye.
Goodbye.
Great stuff.
Yep.